You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
I've shared this with every coach that I've talked to within our group. And one of the things that we're trying to do in CMC is we want you to either have clients already or get clients quickly. It's an investment for you to build your business and build your life. It should pay for itself. And so if it's not paying for itself, there's something off. So if I get on a call with somebody and they don't have clients, I'll ask them, how much time are you spending? What are you doing in that time? So as a baseline, you should be spending at least 10 to 12 hours a week. If you're not, it's going to go very slow. And most people can find that much time, even if they're doing a full-time job, even if they have a family. And I've seen this in the real estate world. I've seen this in the coaching world. I've gone through that journey. You can carve that out, and not all at once, but an hour and a half, 2 hours, every day will do it. And so my biggest recommendation in that area is that you're doing something every day or at least 5 days a week, something related to that coaching. Now, what is that something? If you don't have any program or mentors or anything, and I'm assuming that you have some kind of coaching training, you understand what coaching is, then you're spending a part of that time, at least 3 hours a week, developing on that, learning more about how that works. So that means you're watching other coaches do their work. You're listening to other coaches, what they're talking about. So this podcast will be part of that. You're watching other coaches do the work. So likely you have a space where, like if you've gone through certification, you've seen coaching sessions, how that works, getting feedback on it from other coaches, or you're coaching somebody like as a buddy coaching and you're getting feedback on that. That part, you cannot omit that, because when coaches jump in, they're like, well, I just need to pick up the business. It's not disconnected. If you can't coach people, if you cannot add that value in that first session, nobody's going to sign up with you. So that piece is essential. That piece we have it embedded in Coaching Mastery community.
Can I just quick add to that? One of the things I noticed myself as a psychologist is I had all this training and I still was doing training, but there got to be a point where I kind of got comfortable in what I knew and what I was doing, and I stopped learning. And I absolutely know that was evident in how I showed up and what I delivered. And so I think one of the valuable pieces of continuing to learn, such as you're talking about, is it keeps new ideas coming in. And we all know what happens when we have new ideas come in. There's little centers in our brains light up. We've got serotonin and dopamine and all of these neurotransmitters dumping in our brains. And it feels good and it's exciting and energizing. So it will show up on your face. If you're doing, Facebook videos or different things like that, you can be like, guess what I learned this week? This thing. And you're talking with excitement because you're learning, and that's going to attract people too. So there's so many reasons for you to continue that learning journey.
Yeah. And it's so easy to get complacent, and especially after you get a few clients. And I went through a period of that. I think every coach kind of falls into that, depends how long, where I had enough clients coming in. I didn't need to, I had so many referrals coming in. I didn't even need to do an outreach. And I didn't realize how negative that was in my thinking at the time. But what I also realized was that my sessions were getting affected. I was kind of showing up even though I loved the sessions, it was becoming more of a job because I was not learning enough to apply outside of that. One of the ways that I gauge how my coaching business is doing is, am I trying something new with my clients every week? If I'm not doing that, even now after 7.5 years, something is off. And part of it is your clients are going to actually force you, which I'll talk about, they'll force you to grow. But as a baseline, you need to be in that world of learning. Part of it will be mentally. There has to be an experiential component, whether it's another coach you're coaching and you're getting feedback. And then the other part of your time, let's say you spend 3 hours on that in a week. The rest of your time needs to go on prospecting. And here's why it's important, which means that you are connecting with people. I don't care if they're paying you or not, you're finding people to coach. Ideally, they're paying you. Or at least you're doing one initial session that you can offer something for. That is the ideal situation. Let's say you don't have that. Whatever the case is, you're coaching people. You're actually in a given week, you should be at least coaching 3 people, if not more, per week, because 3 different people, and they're not just coaches, they're people that you are outside of coaches that you get to coach, and you're seeing the effect of it. And that's going to push you to see, because you're going to start to see gaps in your coaching process. You're going to start to see gaps. You're like, I don't know how to navigate this area. What am I going to do? Then you go back to that coach and you're like, how do you do it?
Yes.
And that is the, like, if you look at it from, let's bring in the military standpoint. It's like in military, they go through a lot of training, consistent training. But the only way they get to test that, the effect of that training, is when they're in battle. So I know it's a sort of a negative thing for some people, but just entertain me. So when this is the battle, like the actual coaching is the battle, that's the only place you're going to get the real feedback of the effect of your coaching. And you also see your weak points and strengths, and you can amplify on the strengths, work on the weak areas, and move forward. Without that, there is no business. And on top of that, without that prospecting, it doesn't matter how many posts you put out there. It doesn't matter how many funnels you're working on or your website you're working on. There is no business. Yeah. And there's no skill set improvement if you're not at least working with 3 people. So out of the 12 hours or 10 hours, you're spending 7 to 8 hours prospecting and working with people. Yeah. Now, if you do that consistently for the next 90 days, ideally, you have a couple of clients you're already working with. And if you haven't, there are some blocks that are stopping you, and you're going to sit with that for the next 6 months to 1 year and 2 years. And that's what I want you to think about, is because if you've already gone through this for the past 3 months or 6 months, or when you're going to sit there for another 6 months or 2 years, and you might be trying to hold on to that money. It's like, oh, you know what? No, this is my savings. I don't want to touch this, and not reinvesting it, but you're losing time. You're losing time, you're losing energy, you're losing resources, and you're probably building up all sorts of stuff that's affecting your relationships. Yeah. And it's not taking your business anywhere. And you're probably gonna, at some point, the pain will get so much, you're gonna fall prey to one of these big marketing companies who will tell you, I'll build the right funnel for you, and you will just work with a lot of clients. You'll pay a bunch of money and nothing is gonna happen. Not because they're kind of tricking you, but they're just teaching you what they know. And that might not apply to what you're doing.
Right. And there's more to marketing. You can market all you want, but if you suck at sales and you're not able to have those strategy calls be effective and tweak those over time and all of those things, like the whole thing needs to come together. Like if you're really good in one piece, it's going to be hard for the whole thing to work well. It's going to be clunky, and you're just going to be frustrated because not everything is kind of flowing into each other as a well-oiled business. And so a lot of what you're saying, Faisal, I love, because you're kind of laying out the perspective. Okay, well, if you're really unsure about the money, okay, great. You know what? Here's what you need to do. You just laid it out. You need to spend 12 hours a week. You know, a third or a quarter of that is spent continuing to learn. 3/4 of that is you need to be doing the hard and probably uncomfortable work of reaching out and prospecting and having those conversations. And it's going to feel deflating at times. It's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel salesy, probably. Not that it has to be, but when most people, most coaches, what I've seen, and I fall into this category when I shifted over, because in mental health, I didn't have to sell. Like, people had insurance, and if they needed it, they knew where to go. So I didn't have to do that. And so I've really had to ramp up my sales abilities because I no longer accept insurance. And so people want my services. They got to fork the money out. And so it's harder to convince. It's harder to have that conversation. But if you're struggling and you're spending a few months doing all the right things that you believe needs to happen and it's not working out for you, you got to get that outside perspective. And that might be the time where you fork over a little money, and it's not an expense. Just like you might tell your client, coaching is not an expense. It's an investment in you, and you are the best investment in your life and into your future. Same thing with coaching as a business. It's not an expense in your business, although you can write it off, and that's a great thing, but it's an investment into your business that is going to pay dividends, guaranteed, as long as you're doing the work, as long as you're engaged and you're utilizing what it is that you're paying for and you're putting it into practice.
So that part is really important to understand. Actually, there was a clip that I watched of Grant Cardone. You might not like him, but it doesn't matter. Like in that moment, I really understood. Now, Grant Cardone is an investor and he runs his events to attract more investors and also students for his programs. There was this young guy sitting there in the audience. He gets up at like early 20s and he gets up, he tells Grant Cardone, he's like, I've spent the past few years listening to your content, reading your books and everything. I went from barely making any money to making 200K a year. And he's like, I'm in a position where I can invest, but I don't know where to invest. And you can tell he's like, what should I do? And he's like he's in front of thousands of people and he's about to give advice and he has to check in, like, what is he doing? He also needs people to invest with him too in there. And I loved what he told them. And I was like, this might make or break my relationship with Grant Cardone right here, because it's very easy.
You and Grant are like buds, aren't you?
It's funny because I have a weird relationship. There are things that I don't agree with him, but there are things that I really love the way, because it became more evident as I started building a business. I'm like, okay, he's telling the truth. Like some of the things about the abundance piece of things, it hit me. He was talking about, I don't care about how much money I have, but what I care about is my time with my family and the people that I want to connect with. He's like, I call all these millionaires and billionaires. I have my jet ready. Let's go spend some time for a week. I'm going to meet you there. Or I'm going to fly you there. They're all busy working. All that they don't know how to take because they're scared. As soon as he said that, I'm like, I know that feeling. And I've seen that feeling in my clients too. Oh, then I understood what he was talking about when it comes to abundance, is that a lot of people don't have abundance because they're afraid, not because they don't have money. Because there are a lot of people with money, they don't do shit with it. So like going back to the other story, so this young guy, he's about to, like, he will listen to everything Grant Cardone will say because he's been following him for 5 years. You could pretty much tell him anything. He'll tell him to jump up and down. He will do that in that moment. But that's your investment. So what he tells him was really powerful. He's like, listen, you're young. The real estate world is not going anywhere. And this is coming from a very successful real estate investor. What I need you to do is build yourself up. I need you to build confidence in yourself. I need you to find a way to not only make that money, 10x that, and find a way to keep doing that and amplify that to the next level. I need you to become so confident in your ability to make that and amplify that, that you don't question that ever. And then you can slowly start to put in money into the real estate world. You need to invest in yourself back. You have a while to go. For the next couple of years, few years, reinvest. Get coaches, get mentors, get everything that you need to strengthen what you have in front of yourself. And then you can invest that money wherever you want to. Nothing is running away. And then when he said that, I'm like, oh shit, okay, he cared.
Kidding. That's awesome. I love that advice. I feel like leaving it on the note of the power of investing in ourselves, which is literally the foundation of coaching. And what I think is so crazy is that we're trying to convince other people that they should invest in themselves. And yet we as coaches struggle with investing in ourselves. Let's not be hypocritical and figure out a way to invest in yourself as a coach. Maybe that investment is primarily time right now, but if you do the work, you will get the results. Like, it will happen, and there's no predictability of like what it's going to look like and how long and all that stuff. But if you do the work, you are going to start to get results. And as you get the results, then you can invest not just your time, but also money. Or if you have the money already from other aspects, that before outside of coaching and or whatever, but you got to invest in yourself. Just figure out what that looks like for you.
And investing in yourself and your business, they're both two different things, but they come back to you. And I just want to lay this out. Everything that we've talked about here, one of the reasons why CMC is such a unique environment, coaching master community, is that we've taken, it's not just one person, all of our partners and members, we've taken what we've learned in the coaching world, like what works, what doesn't work, and what would help us implement things better. And we've turned that into coaching mastery community. So all the things that we described, you will get feedback for your coaching process, whether it works or doesn't work, positive or negative. That's a very big part of our culture, is to give each other feedback. So you can improve that piece. You will learn how sales operates within the coaching context, how marketing operates within the coaching context. You don't need to become a master of either. You just need to learn how it works in the coaching world. And we will help you get direct feedback as to what's actually happening out in the marketplace. So you're not wondering whether something that you're doing is working or not. We'll help you develop that system to get consistent clients. And that's what the community is about. And it's not just 1%, it's a lot of people going out there, getting feedback, bringing it back. That is going to be incredibly, it doesn't exist right now in the coaching world. We've looked around, it's not there. One of the reasons why we got all frustrated because we've all invested in so many different programs, 5,000, 10,000, 24,000. None of them have given us the value. And these are very small cohort groups that help you actually implement this and move forward. And I can tell you this, as a coach, and I was just talking to one of the coaches in our community, he's like, all I need is 5K per month for me to move forward. So there was a time where I used to think, oh my God, 5K, how am I going to make that? But being at 25K per month right now, that looks too small for me. And I'm likely thinking very small too in my business. And I know that working with enough business coaches that you can move up. Now, it's not necessarily just about money, but that resource is going to help you create time. It's going to help you create more abundance. It's going to help you help other people around you. It's going to help you make your business sustainable. You're thinking very small. You're probably thinking, I just need to make 3,000 a month, everything. For one thing, you're not taking into account you're running a business because that's not enough to run a business. Second, you probably think that you can't build a business that's very lucrative. And that's probably because you have a lot of gaps as to how this business works and how actually the influencer path works. And we can help you think through that a little bit better. And once you get past that 5,000, like the sky's the limit. It depends on your goals, and depends on your vision of what you're creating, depends how much you want to impact, and depends like kind of lifestyle you're trying to create. But you can do a lot more. And that journey could be shortcut if you're among the right people, getting the right feedback and the right training to move you forward, to actually implement, not just mental knowledge, but actually implement this process. And that's what we want to support you to do.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey Podcast.